celebrating the power of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill, and these are great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to talk to some of America's greatest veterans that live right here in this community. This weekend, as we celebrate and remember our veterans, we've got a collection that starts with my dear friend, World War II veteran, Sam Hardman. It is my honor to have you with us here at our studios today for Anything is Possible. Welcome.
It's my honor to be here also.
You had a birthday in May.
Last day of May.
How old?
90.
How does that feel to be 90 years old?
I had a gentleman come up and told me the first time he saw me after that, said, "Sam, you don't look a bit older than 89." So, but I feel good, and I don't have any pains. I take my medicine like I'm supposed to, and so everything's fine.
You know what, the one thing that really, as we talked through your story on the radio, that really got me was your smile.
Well, I've been accused of having one.
You have this wonderfully upbeat, optimistic spirit. How'd you get that?
I think probably some of that came from my mother.
Tell me about her.
All right. She lived to be 98 years old, and she was, you never saw her unless she had a smile. It didn't make any difference how tough things were. She always had a smile. And I just remember that. And she used to babysit for some of the families. And you could see her smile when the kids were. And she was so good with small kids. And so it was just something that I remember about her is her smile.
And why do you smile so much?
Good Lord's been good to me. He's blessed me so much that I just can't ever thank him enough, Halloran.
Talk to me about why you love this country.
Well, Halloran, this country has meant so much to me. When I could see, I got to see North Africa and Italy, and I just knew that when I could get back home, that's where I wanted to be. There's one thing that we can say about World War II veterans: they didn't quit. We lost the world. We lost worlds and worlds of them, over 400,000, which makes me realize how fortunate I was, and how fortunate I was to be able to still be here and live in this country. And I made up my mind at that time that I was going to do everything that I could to be a blessing to this country.
I'm going to say one word, and you say whatever comes out of you when I say it.
Okay.
Vietnam.
Hell, for me, anyway.
Tell me about your experience in Vietnam.
Well, my experience in Vietnam was, I was a combat infantryman, and they call us the ground pounders. Pretty much, you're on the ground, you're carrying your M16, pretty much like search and destroy missions. You're going out seeking the Viet Cong. I guess the biggest thing I have about that is that when I transitioned out from Vietnam, it's like I left on Monday, I was back home on Wednesday without no debriefing. And from that period, that's kind of haunted me for a long, long time, to be honest with you. It's, they call it Ptsd.
Do you have that?
I have PTSD. Yes.
How do you manage it, and how does it manifest?
I didn't know how to manage it, Hal. I didn't know how to manage it. Like I said, I come out around about 21 years old. Didn't know how to manage it. Didn't have no debriefing. I just started getting help with that 2017, 50 years later.
Wow.
It stayed suppressed for that long.
Would you have dreams, nightmares?
Dreams, nightmares, still have those occasionally. Dreams and nightmares, thinking you were still back there. And how you dealt with just life and family, you realize now why some of the things you did and said back then was connected with that PTSD.
You were trying to manage that,
Yeah.
and it's managing you because you don't have the tools if you don't
have
know.
no tools,
Yeah.
no tools whatsoever. Didn't know. I guess I didn't even know I had it. You know, I know what I was going through, but I didn't know what it was. And how you would hear about it, I would say it's older years after some of the Iraq incidents, you hear about PTSD, but I still didn't connect that to me. And then went to the VA, got to talking to some people to help, and so in 2017 I started getting some help with that, and it's helping me, but it's not going away yet. But I'm so thankful to get the help.
You know what's interesting is that is a subtext for your life, right?
Right.
21, 50 years later, if that's kind of bubbling underneath, it makes it even more incredible what God has done in your life, because you've built a pretty incredible life and family.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why family
Yeah.
means so much to you.
Oh yes, family is God first, family second, and that's exactly the way I like to look at it.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up,
I was not forced to go into a bathroom and pull my uniform off. I was allowed to wear mine home.
Joining me on the broadcast is Ashley Nicklos, Lieutenant Colonel.
Mom.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. When we were prior to beginning our taping, I mentioned you were Lieutenant Colonel, and you batted it away then, and you're batting it away now. What is it that's in you that makes you go, no, titles aren't the thing?
Well, I think what drives me more than anything is service. When you're serving God or others, it's not about you. A true leader is someone who inspires and empowers. A leader has to set an example sometimes in the front by making sure that you don't ask anyone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. But a true leader is someone who can inspire and empower those around them to do even more than they ever thought possible. And I just, it's not about me and what I'm able to achieve. I've just been extremely blessed in my life.
Let's talk about your military service first.
Okay.
Where have you served? How have you served?
Well, on the military side, my father was a commercial airline pilot, and he was also in this Tennessee Air National Guard unit. And my grandfather on my mother's side, he was a B-17, B-29 pilot. He actually lost his life flying a mission over the Pacific in 1945, 2 months before my mother was born. That's an amazing story. You'll have to indulge me on that. He flew 50 missions out of North Africa in a B-17, came home and re-upped to fly the B-29 in the Pacific. And he was flying a mission where halfway through, they knew they wouldn't be able to make it back. They wouldn't have enough fuel if they continued the mission. They decided as a crew to continue because the information they were relaying back was imperative for the follow-on mission, which was Operation Meeting House, which was the first firebombing of Tokyo. They continued, and almost 3/4 of the way back to Saipan, they ran out of fuel and he ditched the aircraft. I've read accounts from 3 of the people who survived, and it's amazing to go through and hear their discussions and what they were facing at the time. My grandfather did not make it out alive. He died and was in the aircraft and went down with the aircraft. But I found out this story about 5 years ago, and I was on a temporary duty for recurrent simulator training. And I had just made aircraft commander at the time, and I was just thinking of my grandfather and the responsibility that was on his shoulders during that mission and what he carried during the entire war, and to end by running out of fuel, and to realize that I fly air refueling tankers So I get to make sure that people's grandfathers get home. And I get to make sure that the mission is completed and the fathers get to meet their daughters. Like my grandfather never got to meet my mother. So, I often say God has a plan, and so many times we don't know what that plan is. You just have to let it happen. And so I'm just truly blessed.
One of the things that I love about you and I admire about you is you live with so much joy. What's that about?
Well, I've always been happy all my life. My brothers always played sports, but I had a pocket knife and I whittled things. I made model airplanes, little boats, all kinds of things. I made things, and I liked to fool with things and fix them. Yeah, I like to fool with things and fix them. So I was always happy. And then when I got into the Air Force, I really loved airplanes. It was a pure joy. Every airplane in the Air Force at that time had 2 books about 2 inches thick. One was a service manual that told you everything about it, what it does, how to fix it. The other was a parts manual that told you every piece that went into it, from the tiniest rivet to the largest propeller. And on those 24-hour shifts, I read those when there was nothing to do. So I knew everything about an airplane when I was coming on. And in the service, you meet such good friends. I had good buddies all the time, and that was a joy. Now, as far as the war itself, I have, as I told you about those Christmases, the things I laughed about, we had many things like that. Now, I saw mankind at its worst, and I saw him at its best. And I've managed to forget or just push back the horrors that I saw. The only thing I can't is little children coming out of a bomb building foraging in a garbage dump for food. That's always stuck with me. And to me, that's a true meaning of war. That's the people that pay the price, the little ones. People just think about that before they go to war, but they don't. And as I say, that every time I see little starving children somewhere, that comes back to me. But the other part, I saw dead bodies and saw burnt things, and as I say, that I can get just Josh, and I keep the happy days. I remember I saw
No, let's stop there for just a second. You said something really profound. You said, I keep the happy days.
Yes.
Explain that to me.
I keep the happy parts of all my buddies, and I don't dwell on the sad things. And I was fortunate. I met a girl at LSU, and she was just like me. We made each other laugh. And we had 66 happy years, and kept joy. Something I never thanked you for. 5 years ago, she had had a stroke, had lost her short-term memory for 7 months, and she couldn't remember whether she had breakfast, but she could remember the dinosaur dig, all the things we did years ago. And she developed a fear of being left alone. For 7 months, I never left my house. When she woke up from a nap, she'd call me, I was there. My son got everything for me, and it was a joy. And one day, I was having a handicapped bathtub shower put in for her. The man came to work on it. I couldn't get her oxygen to level up. She sat in her little chair, her easy chair, and I told her I better call the doctor. And she said, no, let me take a nap. So I worked with him on the shower for an hour. I came back, she was gone. And right after that, it was devastating. I didn't eat or sleep for 3 days. And a few weeks after that, a fellow named HHH called me and had me up for breakfast at Cracker Barrel. And for the first time in months, he made me laugh again. And I owe him the greatest of thanks. He'll never know how much it was to start laughing again. And I haven't quit.
It is my high honor and privilege to welcome to the broadcast Bill Robinson. Thank you for being here today.
It's an honor to be here, sir.
We were at the event out in Tellico.
Yes.
It was the first time I met you, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out for the life of me. Longest serving POW.
Enlisted POW.
POW. Yes, and you were just smiling and laughing.
Well, I would not be doing the 58,000 who didn't come home justice by being unhappy. They inspired me to live. They inspired me to remember their lives and what they gave their lives for, the freedoms that we all enjoy today. And if I was going to walk around as a bitter man, then I might as well have stayed in Vietnam. But it's yesterday is gone, today's here, and tomorrow's coming. So let's get on with life.
Yeah, because bitterness is a prison of its own.
Yes, sir, it absolutely is.
Yeah, how'd you learn that?
Well, I don't know exactly when it fell in line, is that I go back to my shoot down day and look at what happened to me in just a short period of time. I was just flat, dumb, and happy, airborne, going to pick up a pilot. Next thing you know, we're being shot at. Next thing you know, the airplane had fallen to the ground, and I was able to walk away from a crashed airplane, and only to be captured. And then next thing you know, I'm being severely beaten by the locals, as though I had done something wrong. And then next thing you know, they took me out and had what I didn't know at that time, it turned out to be a mock execution,
What do you mean a mock execution?
Well, they took me out and lined me up next to a freshly dug grave with my hands and feet tied together, blindfolded in front of a crowd, and somebody read something, and I said it was kind of like they were reading my charges, and then I was found guilty, and now I was possibly going to be executed. So I was thinking my life here on earth was over.
Were you afraid? Were you?
I don't know what I was. I guess I was in a certain amount of shock as to, I didn't know prisoners were treated this way, or at least I never thought they should be treated this way. The first B-52 to be shot down that night, but there was a young man on the tail gunner on board named Walter Ferguson. Walter and I looked him up and I discovered he and I were at Altus, Oklahoma together, where my first duty assignment. I never knew him, but I saw his B-52s flying. He saw my helicopter doing its thing in the local neighborhood, not having a clue that 10 years later that he would give his life for the freedoms that I enjoy today.
Wow.
And and our military today is full of Walter Fergusons. And we have a nation of people who do not have a clue nor to appreciate the sacrifices. And then, we like to remind the folks out there that these people are not strangers. They are our sons and daughters. They are our nation's pride and joy. And for some reason, we don't have what it takes to say thank you to those who serve. And after the bombing, the Vietnamese rushed back to the table. They signed the agreement, and on the 12th of February, we were homeward bound. And I always say, somebody asked me, a friend of mine asked him, says, could you define freedom? And he said simply, doors with inside knobs. I came home to a welcome that belonged to many of my brothers who are sitting out there today and sisters who are watching this. And I'd like to say simply, welcome home. I stole your glory, you might say. I was not forced to go into a bathroom and pull my uniform off. I was allowed to wear mine home. And, that's my brother's word. Could you imagine? A nation so down on its men and women in uniform, they asked them to remove it. Sad, sad.
May that never happen again.
And if I have anything to do with it, I carry a corn that I proudly carry and is part of the Vietnam Veterans of America. And on the back side of the corn, it simply says, "Never again will one generation of veterans abandon another." Yeah, I came home and fanfare everywhere I went, you know, and as I look back on my 73 years nearly on earth, I'll always say one of the saddest moments to me is when we forgave those who ran before we as a nation stood up and said thank you to those who served. I look at the things I'm so grateful that we still have a nation. We still have young men and women who stand up and say, "Take me." You know, I have so many family members that were part of World War II that stood up and said, "Take me." I had cousins that fought in Korea said, "Take me." And so, you know, we still have young people out there willing to serve. And, you know, and I'm so proud of their willingness to give back to the nation that has given them so much.